Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Felix Lutsch from Chorus One. We're a staking provider in the Cosmos ecosystem and other ecosystems, and I'm joined today by some OGs in the DeFi space to discuss, what is the future for DeFi in the Cosmos ecosystem and especially like the Interchain ecosystem. Unfortunately, we also supposed to have Mark here. He was on Rave yesterday and going too hard and can't make it. We're not sure. But luckily we have the other panelists here. So I'm going to start just by like introducing or letting you introduce yourselves, right? Maybe let's start with Sean from Mekatek. Hi, Sean. Welcome on the panel. And like maybe tell us a little bit about how you're engaged in the Cosmos DeFi ecosystem right now.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Sean Braithwaite, and I'm the CEO of Mekatek, where we work on Interchain block space markets. So we're trying to like redo how mempools work and how cross-chain interactions will happen.
Awesome, thanks. And yeah, Julien?
Yeah, so my name is Julien Bouteloup. I'm involved in a few different projects. I've founded a few different projects like Stake DAO. We accumulate governance tokens, and it's a kind of a wealth management mechanism for asset that you have in your portfolio, so maximize your yield. Rekt.news, it's the deep dark side of the ecosystem where we analyze and study whatever happened in the DeFi space. Blackpool, the hedge fund for NFT. We are one of the biggest leader in the space. We invest, and we also have an esport vertical. We make those assets at work. Stake Capital is the family office, and we have a quant side. So we also do like validation, staking, liquidations, market making, arbitrage, and name them. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks. That was a great background. I think also like maybe to double click a little bit on you, Sean. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're engaged in the Cosmos DeFi ecosystem today? How did you come to build the project you're building right now?
All right. Okay. So I used to work at the ICF as an engineer on Tendermint core, and then we kind of split off and did informal. So we started like this verification and development, which was like the biggest development org in Cosmos at a time. Maybe it's different now, but it was back then. And I stepped in as CTO there, where we shipped IBC. So I worked on the light client and protocol specs, and a range of things. And I guess one of the issues we had working within that ICF grant structure, that there was a lot of things that we wanted to do to Tendermint that we couldn't do. So we wanted to like stop Tendermint being like a holistic thing. We want to split into libraries and maybe like redo the gossip layer. We want to like change gossip. We didn't like how gossip was done. And it didn't seem to work in that configuration, let's say. So like myself and my co-founder, Alex Zimmerl, we kind of started our own company to take another whack at it and looked at different ways that we could sort of align economically with that kind of work, so we could hire really, really high-end people and remunerate them well. And the short answer to that was MEV. It seemed like that was going well when we started the company, and it started to become like a dominant source of revenue. It seemed to be where a lot of stuff was happening. So we tried to think of a way that we could make that so flows of capital much better governed, and like how do you balance incentives when you have like overlapping preferences between relayers and validators, searchers, hedge funds, passive active liquidity. Like it isn't clear that our current block space markets like have those kind of facilities. So we want to build that. So we started Mekatek.
Awesome, thanks so much. Yeah, we're gonna like dive into that a little bit later for sure. I think, Julien, you mentioned a lot of your projects, and obviously you are around in a lot of ecosystems. You're like one of the early DeFi people in a way, with Curve, with a lot of other things. And also early in the Cosmos, actually, like many people maybe don't know, but yeah, Stake Capital is a validator and always been there. So I think I'm very curious to hear how you kind of see the Cosmos ecosystem, the DeFi ecosystem compared to other things, and where it stands right now.
Yeah, it's time passes very quick. Remember, we did a game of stake, so we back then when multi-chain was not a thing, and there was only Ethereum and Bitcoin, and the rest of the community, there was no DeFi, and so like Chorus One and Figment and other guys were like pretty small companies. Like we're involved in Tezos and Cosmos. I remember like there was this competition game of stake. We spent a year and a half, 2 years our time, and there was no concept of money back then. So it was just like purely investing time and resources and capital and energy, and more importantly at the time. It was pretty painful. But it's kind of how the space changed. It's pretty astonishing, and congratulations on IBC, because back then it was like the concept of IBC, but people were like, no, this will come in 15 years, 20 years, never happen. Well, it's a massive piece of work, so congrats on that. Yeah, so the question was more like the situation of all the different chains together.
Yeah, like just like DeFi in Cosmos, right? Obviously, that's kind of the core usage of the infrastructure.
Yeah, so I think it's in the Cosmos and Tendermint and the consensus mechanism of IBC. What I see the ecosystem of Cosmos is the ability to easily power a few different ideas and projects in the ecosystem. Rather than, for example, in Polkadot or in Ethereum, Cosmos it's the SDK of Cosmos. The project, the ecosystem of Cosmos is super easy to build and bootstrap a project, and that connecting those projects between each other by having a hub, but then bridging across multiple different chains like EVM compatible and so I see Cosmos as potentially and that's the vision, I think, to be the hub of connecting all the different blockchains together.
Yeah, super cool. Thanks. And I guess if you think about this big role of Cosmos, like obviously we have to somehow get there, and do you need like projects actually building on it? And maybe one way to look at it would be to kind of question what is actually lacking in the Cosmos ecosystem to kind of make this a reality, in your opinion. Maybe whoever wants to start.
I think it's I'm not sure if it's something I should say, but I think it's still like the cryptonomics behind the atom concept. Because if Cosmos, the vision is to really like empower projects, at the end, the token economics of the project is more important than the rest of the economy, such as the atom.
So the tokenomic economics of the atom is bad, right?
I think so, yeah.
But did that stop Cosmos from expanding?
Well, expanding, that's the point. Like, how do you gauge expansion compared to Ethereum, for example? Like in billions of US dollars are being traded a year. If Cosmos is fast and cheap, why not more projects? For example, like Curve, like Aave, like that's my point. It's like there's a paradox between saying the chain is already alive and people can go there and have access to free transaction and super fast transactions, but not at volume.
That I totally agree with you. Like people should pay for shit. People should pay for relayers. The validator revenue is terrible on most chains. Like zero transaction fees, like funded by inflation, is a bad economic model for sustained growth. And I think like this market cycle really revealed that. But I think the point that I was making is that like one of the key theses, I would say the key thesis of Cosmos is about sovereignty. It's about things like not being dependent, about like limiting coordination, even between economic systems. So like Terra got up to like $1 billion a day in volume without any coordination from Cosmos, from atoms, right?
That's my point. Yeah. There was no intrinsic value of the project creating value back to the token atom. That's completely disconnected. There's no correlation, direct correlation. You can have the most successful project in Cosmos and actually not use Atom. And that's the thing. It's like at the end, a project that is so successful can actually be and become the token economics of the chain.
I personally, I think that's a great thing. I think that you're not tied to the monetary regime of atoms as you develop in Cosmos. I think that's very important. But Vasily just talked about Neutron, which is going to be secured by atoms. So I think that's going to be that's where it's going to start to accrue value. Like I think that was always the plan, to sort of like not charge tax for as long as possible in Cosmos. Was very, very important to go into market versus an ecosystem like Polkadot, which some people would admire the technology there and look at all the capabilities that are amazing, but they don't have the adoption. One reason was because the tax is too high. Like the value capture is disproportionate to the value delivered. So
if I do the devil advocate, it's true, but look at Ethereum. Ethereum is super taxed. You have one of the highest tax in the ecosystem and the most usability and the usage.
So there's two things: there's value capture and value delivered. So like going on Ethereum, like Aave or whatever, gets like free composability with every other protocol on Ethereum. That's amazing, right? You have like, you know, Uniswap and SushiSwap, and then 1inch on top that builds a whole protocol based on that liquidity without permission. That's awesome, right? Versus on Cosmos or whatever, you have to kind of like build that from scratch. So, or you don't have to build it from scratch, but there's the composability story isn't as effective. So like the Ethereum composability story delivers a tremendous amount of value. And I think that's why why people were willing to pay high gas fees for so long.
Yeah. Also, remember, like, because we know each other for quite some time, and back then I was criticizing a few different projects that, for me, in the Cosmos world, we're spending more time to maintain and build their blockchain rather than actually building the product. And I think that's a big issue in the Cosmos ecosystem, is that you have projects and ideas about changing the world and like climate change or any type like this without mentioning the project, but then at the end they just build a team of DevOps, a team of guys that build a blockchain, but they don't build a product. And this was a big, I still see that as a big issue in the
That's very interesting. But so you're saying that is kind of a problem because the infrastructure in Cosmos wasn't ready, right? Like, so this unnamed team.
But it's actually now a big opportunity for consulting company to be the consulting aspect, the technical aspect for those projects.
Yeah, like kind of, it's getting easier. I think we see that, right? Like building a Cosmos chain gets easier. You have more modules, you have more things there from the toolkit. You don't have to like code so much. Now we have also Cosmosm. I guess we're kind of getting there, but yeah, I do see your point. I think maybe what's also interesting is, I guess, the other direction of this trend where it's more, we are seeing, right, like application-specific blockchains, DYDX moving to its own chain from the, you know, high-tech Ethereum environment in a way. Is that gonna be like a trend? And I guess for me, if I look at it, I think like Cosmos like kind of front-ran that idea and it stands for that, right? So is that the end state, or how do you think about are like successful applications gonna move to their own chain to be able to have the value accrual to their token instead of like paying the tax to the king?
It's really a trade-off, right? Because when you like the app chain thesis is playing out, like a lot of people are launching chains. DYDX is one, but if you look at the number of airdrops, right, obviously people are launching chains, and the marginal cost of doing that is going to go way down with stuff like Celestia, right? So right now, there's a lot of things that suck about launching your own chain, right? Forming a validator set, like going through test nets, like going through that cycle, bringing up building that economic security such it makes sense takes a while. But as we're seeing with interchain security, that cost went down. When Celestia comes out, again, when you don't even have to build any, you're just a roll up, it's going to go down again. So those stories that story is improving. One story that still needs to improve is definitely that of composability. Like on Ethereum, you get incredible composability and it's synchronous, right? It's awesome, it's atomic. On Cosmos, it's asynchronous. And sort of at the intersection of those two security models is MEV, and we got to figure out how that works.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I guess that's also like a area I wanted to dive into. So, right, basically, right, I mean, I don't know, like I hope people know what MEV is. So basically we are talking about kind of value that is able to be extracted from the on-chain states of the different protocols by its users or by like validators essentially in the end. And Sean, I guess you're building a project here. Julien is also active in this space in terms of like making the market more efficient, like extracting MEV in the end. And definitely one of the core differences, I guess, is you don't have that synchronous thing like composability. Now, when you say we're figuring that out, like what is a way to do that? Is it just like IBC? Are we always going to stay in this realm that you will just have like a different kind of composability, or is it possible to get to that stage where you can do like a flash loan in the Cosmos ecosystem across chains, maybe even?
Yeah, like when you think about atomicity, what we're really talking about is execution, right? So what is like the risk that something you think is going to happens in exactly the way that you expect it, right? So like if you're taking an ARB on even an L2, right, and trying to go across a bridge and you're waiting 7 days, like the opportunity's gone by the time you get there, right? So this is execution risk. And right now there's a lot of execution risk in IBC, but I claim that probably in like, 2-3 years, there will be atomic blocks in Cosmos. As in you will have like interchain blocks. And there's a couple proposals for how we do that. Anoma, like Isaac was just up here. No, Adrian was here, but there's another guy, another nice person from Anoma named Isaac, who's working on a new kind of, I think he's calling it Shimras right now, some heterogeneous packs. So anyways, there's a lot of work being done, and it's not done, but it is becoming more believable.
And you think that is like kind of, it's a core piece to make DeFi or successful to have this? Is it that important for the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's good because it'll, like, if you could have like liquidity on one chain that applies to an operation on another chain, doesn't mean you have to move it. And it doesn't mean like, so all this multi-chain world, right, where the same protocol deploys on multiple L2s or whatever, or there's multiple competing sort of thesis of, oh, this is a better DEX, whatever. It's just fragmenting very limited liquidity. Like the whole blockchain space is just not that big, you know. And as we sort of partition, you know, the limited resources we have, just so we could like execute in parallel, it hurts UX because it means like execution between those two chains is just very expensive. So I think that's what's going to drive, like, the interchain blocks might happen either like at the protocol layer, or there might be like this sort of builder layer in between blockchains that sort of like figures out how like the optimal execution for these interchain operations, and then gives the user a fixed price and they say yes or no. Like, I will take that. And then the user doesn't care whether it's done on Optimism, whether it's done on Osmosis. Like, I don't, like, right now, I think because of inflation, there's like a lot of brand loyalty to DEXs, right? People made a lot of money like being early in Osmosis. But we think about like the next million users, I think users just want a really good experience. Like, just give me the trade at a good price, you know, with no trust assumptions, don't lose my money. I don't care who fulfills it, right? Whether it's like an LP here or a lending protocol there, like, doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is what I call layer 3. It's basically, as a user, you want to use a product. You don't really care about the underlying technology. You don't really care about how the system works behind the hood. So you go there, you go to Curve, you want to get some token, you swap, and then the system will swap potentially across multiple different chains. You want to get the best lending rate on Aave, then you will just borrow across multiple different liquidity on those different chains. And for us as a quant, it's kind of like, it's beautiful. It's bringing the concept of arbitrage, liquidation, and flash loan to the next level, because then you, instead of having one scope, one isolated market, then you tap directly into many different markets. It's kind of like in caps, like the FX market. If the FX market was just one market, then you can just tap into a $6 trillion US market cap in an instant way. So yeah, it's fantastic. And what we've been doing in MEV, or like more like arbitraging and across different chains. So we usually do like leverage or hedging according to our arbitrage that we take. So we, at the moment in the multi-chain world of quantitative algorithmic trading that we operate, we do that more as if it was a centralized finance. So for example, centralized finance, you take arbitrage and then you will hedge yourself another centralized finance. That's what we're trying to do with the blockchain, the multi-chain, because of rewards and early stage the project. So you might use them instead, even if the price is not the best, you will do that because you'll airdrop or plan in the future to receive governance tokens.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I see like there's also like kind of problems with this, right? Like, we're fragmenting the liquidity, you're like incentivizing more venues for exchange, and then someone else has to make it efficient again. Like, isn't this kind of a perpetual game that, like, where does this end, and can we consolidate this, or like what's the...
I think there's like, so long as there's so much like capital in the space, that we just want to explore as many sort of permutations of like core product thesis in parallel, so we could, and hopefully as cheaply as possible without like the malallocation of like human capital. Like, people are what matter, and if you have people working on dumb projects for too long, that's really, really bad. So you don't want to like overfinance unproductive projects that are sort of trying stupid things.
Okay, yeah. Maybe also like taking it back again a little bit, I guess it's kind of meta-philosophical here for a second. But I guess the question also more like technically in Cosmos, now we kind of talked about this asynchronous communication thing and how Cosmos has to work that out, but is there something unique in Cosmos that like kind of the Cosmos stack allows, or that you see that maybe hasn't been seen in Ethereum or other ecosystems in the DeFi space, or is it?
I mean, it has like the best trust assumptions of any bridge. Like there are other bridges, and they all have different trust. I don't think any of them are as good as IBC. It is this trade-off of like a long time ago there was this decision to choose like safety over aliveness, and this was like a huge research contentious debate, and like Ethereum spent 7 years coming to the same conclusion, it seems like, but like coordinating
you had a lot of ETS research. That CH website. Come on, man. The content was there.
No, they do amazing research. It was just like it's a very complicated issue, and like with finality, you could have these good trust assumptions. So that has worked out for Cosmos. Other things haven't. That has worked out.
Anything you see, Julien? Again, like being in the Ethereum ecosystem more. Does anything excite you in the Cosmos that you think will position it better than something, or like, as we say, also maybe you said like we want to make IBC the standard for all the ecosystems. Like, how do you get actually people to adopt that, right? Like this standard. I mean, we're seeing like I guess like one example, like Avalanche, where it would be amazing, right, if they would use IBC instead, but they're building like their own subnet protocol. I guess Polkadot has the same. I guess. What are your thoughts on this? Is this like?
No. I mean, like the as Shan mentioned, in early of the panel, I said the IBC thing is the killer of for Cosmos. The bridge functionality and being able to bridge asset across different projects. This is a killer. I see the thing I have in the Cosmos environment is see like those projects being able to use the technology, but not necessarily bringing value to the ecosystem. For example, you might be able to use the technology of Cosmos, which is incredibly powerful, but be maybe a layer 2 of Ethereum. So a functionality that will be a layer 2 for Ethereum using the technology of Cosmos. Yes, but the tech and the ecosystem is beautiful. In order for people to jump and start using, is again the value. I think we passed the phase of incentivization, like incentivizing users to come just for the fact of paying them to come because there's no value. It's kind of like the same thing of pay to play to earn or get paid to play a shit game. We passed this phase because now in the ecosystem. You have so much utility and value that people will prefer just going for the value and the utility and still making money rather than getting paid to not have value. So what we need in the Cosmos ecosystem is the same. Like if it's maybe this Cosmos could be used for one type niche market, for example, high frequency trading, maybe, or derivatives, options. But finding a niche, and then people like us as a quant will jump into it, and then we'll try to arbitrage like osmosis and all different products. But it's just different, and that's maybe that's the coming question. But then you have a clear. The question is like, are the chain going to be able to survive when the merge of Ethereum happens? Because of being, if the vision of having free transaction and fast transaction happens, then those different blockchain will need to find a niche market to survive.
But I think there's a lot of reason why people want their own chains. Like if you're like a big product, talks with a lot of gaming companies that are looking to integrate, and it's like, so why would like a business take on exposure to the congestion of someone else's network? Would be one question.
That's the point. If the vision is to have no congestion, then you're
so
bringing
like infinite capacity. So like
not infinite capacity, but multiple layers. You bootstrap like a layer to and then you become the game. But without the point. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty big in the Cosmos ecosystem. I was there in the early days. Team is fantastic. I've got a lot of friends from the ecosystem. The only issue I have is like the fact that users or people that are building a product, they also need to maintain the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the vision of blockchain and the vision of this decentralization, as I see it, is normally you are agnostic from the infrastructure. The infrastructure is serving all of us, and we just plug on top of it. Well, here you still need to operate. It's just this paradox for me, but I still love it. but it's complicated to justify that a team, inside a team, you need to have expertise in DevOps for making a product that will sell ice cream, you know?
Well, I guess, like, what do you think of like what the Ethereum Foundation is doing to reward the client teams? As in, they're like giving them some initial stake, and then those client teams will run validators, and then that revenue will kind of secure them for a little while. Like, what if validators just became, like, developers were validators? What if those two groups were like one thing and they were economically incentivized?
That's the vision. The vision is to have anyone running a mobile phone to be a 32 ETH staking validator and or liquid staking or whatever. At the end of the day, the infrastructure should be run by all of us and not isolated to a project. So, but maybe there's still, like, for example, as I mentioned, high frequency trading, and the point is, like, I think for product that financial product, it's very important to run your own infrastructure. For example, for us, if we want to do arbitrage on Cosmos, we will need to run infrastructure. Because this is the business, and we need to have access to all the transactions before anyone else. And this is what we're doing in Avalanche. This is what we're doing in Solana. We have validators with big amount of money, so we can monitor activity, I would say.
I really agree with that, like, and how much it sucks, and like what kind of a barrier to entry that presents. Like, I know that, like, a lot of market makers will not come into Cosmos because the volumes are too low and the cost of running, like, setting up the infrastructure, it's just not worth it, you know. So it's only like the right now it is really a devotee, you know, cottage industry, even though there are big validators, you know, like Blockdaemon, Figment, you guys, you know, like, they're serious people, but there's like a whole other host of people that are still on the sidelines, you know, waiting for the economics to improve.
Yeah, because like 100 or 150 validators is small.
Do you think that is actually hindrance? I mean, I guess maybe a different discussion, but I guess just to wrap it up, I think we don't have that much time left. I wanted to talk a little bit about, like, a project in Cosmos that had, or like built on Cosmos, that had like a lot of traction and evaporated overnight a little bit. So like Terra, right? I guess there was this use case, a very financial use case, and using the Cosmos technology stack, of course, you know, we can argue again about the value accrual, but maybe more just your perception of this event. How did you perceive it? Was it like good for Cosmos, bad, and what's the opportunity now that Terra's gone? Or like, what are the learnings for you from the whole Terra episode?
So it's very hard to say that it was great just because so many average people lost their savings. Like, that was terrible. Yeah, but there were good things about it, right? For one, the fact that, like, Terra came and collapsed without affecting anything else in the ecosystem, really, you know, was kind of interesting in terms of anti-fragility. In terms of, like, so we were in the market, so we run searching operations as well, and we were in the market when that happened, and we saw, like, what it looks like when a network is under pressure. And, you know, what is it, both from an infrastructure perspective and from a mechanism design perspective. We learned so much during that period, which now we could deploy to benefit the entirety of the rest of the ecosystem. So I think, yeah, there's a lot we learned from the Terra collapse on that side.
Well, I wrote articles. We wrote some piece of articles on rekt. Also was very strong, raising the voice, like, before the event, like 6 months before, like, saying the talking about the Terra and the mechanism, and saying this was a very dangerous game, and what I think is what we learn that's what usually we say is, like, you always learn from the mistake and not never from the success. So what happened is actually fantastic for the ecosystem. And come back to Sean, a lot of people lost money, but it basically taught us that those things can happen, and we have to be very careful. We have to be, and also we need to stop shaming people when they try to have a pragmatic approach and reasoning on a public sphere, like such as Twitter. When someone is saying, okay, this mechanism is not backed by mathematics and is not, it will collapse at some point because it's built and designed, looks like it's bouncy. You know, the only way that it's working is because people are joining and they're making money, so you sell your back to the next person. But in terms of technology, it's actually showing that the project failed not because of the stack. It's because the product, the person who designed the product, the company, was completely flowed. There's a big flow inside the project, but the technology, Cosmos, Tendermint, and all that stuff, this is beautiful, and it showed like strongness. It showed that it was actually working. Then on the validator side, but then we come back on the limit of validators, the decentralization of Cosmos, which is another aspect, which for me is it's a bottleneck of the protocol right now. But otherwise, the tech is still working.
All right, I guess we can wrap up on this. I think we could also continue the discussion talking about the validator set and if is anything else actually. Oh yeah, maybe we can even take a public question if anyone wants to ask something kind of Cosmos DeFi related. Okay.
Thank you. So I guess you made a great point about the product about Atom, because I guess there was a trade-off when they decided to go for sovereign blockchains, which has its own utility. So basically it's built on the same technology, but it doesn't bring value to Atom. However, we have Interchain security coming up with where the Atom token will be valued a little bit more because they will be able to validate on other blockchains. And then we had IBC, which was implemented last year, if I remember correctly. And so my question is, from a technical standpoint, is it possible for other blockchains, such as Ethereum, Avalanche, or any others, to implement IBC so we don't have to go through bridges where we can have tokens directly on the blockchain? From a technical standpoint, is it possible?
I mean, yes. I think it kind of depends on the consensus mechanism or the finality assumptions and how, because you have to build a light client for that specific chain that kind of speaks IBC and kind of can follow the standard. I'm sure you're more versed in this topic, but yeah, essentially, I think for some it's harder than for others, especially if there's some probabilistic finality or the consensus is not well understood, like for example Solana, where it's kind of you don't know where you're at. But in others, it's maybe easier to build. And I think there are people building it, right? I think Composable Finance team is building it for the near, a light client of Tendermint to be able to use IBC. We actually, Chorus One, we did some work on Tendermint in Solidity that for Celo. So this is not in production, but there's work being done on multiple fronts to kind of make that possible. And I guess, the end goal would be that this is adopted and really used. Yeah,
there's a project called Polymer that is building a light client for Ethereum. Or for ETH too. That's pretty exciting. But yeah, there are trade-offs to IBC. You need succinct light client proofs and you need instant finality. So so maybe you could have a gadget that says I'll just wait for some, I don't know, let's say, what's Coinbase at, 50 blocks? 50 blocks, okay. The Coinbase threshold, is the finality gadget for, maybe that'll work. Yeah, but you can do it, and there's people doing it, and they're making progress.
Yeah, you can see on ETH research.ch, you have a huge feed about IBC implementation of project trying to implement the IBC mechanism into Ethereum. You have light clients and a piece of stuff like that.
Thank you guys. Big round of applause, please.